Okay, thank you everybody for being here. Today I'm going to speak about the state of food and humanitarian crisis, some insights from Afghanistan. In the next couple of minutes, I will give you a brief overview to the country, the scale of the humanitarian crisis, the key drivers and factors that affect food security and malnutrition, the consequences, and what are the actions that have been taken so far, what are the challenges, and strategies for possible enhancement of the effectiveness of their delivery in Afghanistan. A bit overview about the country. As you know, Afghanistan is a landlocked country located at the crossroads of Central and South Asia. The total population of the country is around 43 million. The political and economic instability started in the country since the Soviet invasion in 1979, and then followed by a few years of civil war, and then Taliban took control of almost the whole Afghanistan till 2000, from 1996 till 2001. During this time, the entire educational enrollment in Afghanistan was hardly 1 million. And then by 2018, it reached up to 10 million educational enrollment. Similarly, the enrollment of girls during Taliban by 2001 was 0. And then it reached up to almost 1 million children getting into primary schools in Afghanistan, which is unfortunately, again, a dream, and we don't know what's going to happen. With the regain of the control in 2021 by the Taliban, their own agenda are certainly on the priority for them. The fundamental needs and human rights are disregarded. Also, they neglect the well-being of the Afghan people, and the interaction with international communities are always negligible. The scale of the food and humanitarian crisis starts from here, that since the Taliban took control of Afghanistan, you see that according to the ILO, International Labour Organization, there were around 900,000 jobs that were vacant by Taliban. So the people who were in jobs, be it in any position, most of them were removed from those positions, which aggravate the food security situation further, while having the conflicts already aside, fighting the human power that we have been losing in the last couple of years, the sufferings and so on. Besides this, you see that the recent estimate by the United Nations say 28.3 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance. Out of this, you see 49% of them are female, while 51% are male. About 175,000 children, they are estimated to be suffering from acute malnutrition in this year. And then 2.3 million children and 840,000 women may experience moderate to acute malnutrition. This might exacerbate because of the recent Taliban's ban on the women employment in Afghanistan, because that might multiply the entire deprivation of the women population, while having the fact that Afghanistan lost 1.5 million people during the war with Soviet Union. So you can imagine the widows and the orphans left behind at that time while losing 1.5 million people. And then in the last 20 years of the killings that have been going on by the de facto regime, which is currently ruling the country, it left also almost every single house with at least some orphan or widow in the house. So the situation might get worse. Overall, 17.6 million people will need a humanitarian health center specifically. That's dangerous, actually. If you see, the April statistics show that around 17.2 million people, which is almost 40% of the population, they are in the phase 3 and above, based on this classification system of food security. This is terrible. 17.2 million population is going to suffer. And the projections say that by October of this year, this will be staying 15.3 million, not much difference. But again, saying my previous words that having deprived women population of Afghanistan out of work might be this 15.3 doesn't stay 15. It might be increasing, having the story of the former killings of the breadwinners of individual families in Afghanistan. So this might exacerbate further with the passage of time, maybe by the end of this year. And the situation doesn't seem to be on the positive side. The key drivers, beside the conflict, beside the unemployment of the local population, they cannot invest more on the agriculture sector because they have to take care of their health issues also. Poor agricultural productivity because of the lesser investment in fertilization, in improved seed and so on. So we expect poor agricultural productivity that's compounded further by the natural disasters which we experienced already last year, and the earthquake, and then this year again, the flooding season has already been started, and the snow melt earlier than it should be, and that caused massive damage to the agriculture sector. Limited food stock, as I said, it's been gone. People are out of stock. Climate change, of course, and then there are conflicts from the different parts of the country. There are ongoing conflicts being reported, which the situation doesn't highlight to be healthy. That further adds to the insecurity, and also it affects certainly the humanitarian organizations to access those affected people. As I said earlier, the women deprivation from work, poverty already that has been existing. One of the most important is that since the factory regime came into power, they put a limit on the cash withdrawal from the banks. So even if it's your own credit inside there, you cannot access. It's hardly $100 per week, for example. And imagine if you are leading a family of 7 or 8 members or 10 members with lots of health issues, food requirements, and so on. That's terrible. So that's another huge loss on the side of Afghans. As I said earlier, 900,000 unemployment that has already been created. And with the EUD Day being passed, this number is increasing, because as much as they find their fighter to be jobless somewhere, they replace with the technical people that have already been working on certain positions in the ministries, in the organizations, and so on. And overall, the food quality has been deteriorated alongside the water quality, which is entirely groundwater-based withdrawal in major cities like Kabul, which is host to 6 million people. What are the consequences? Already 45 people per 1,000 are being are dead. Annually, mortality rate among women is 638 per 100,000. And as I said, because of the less accessibility of the organizations, maybe these figures are underestimated, because also the de facto regime do not allow this to be publicized, and you can imagine how it happens in conflict regions. Similarly, undernutrition, migration already, there are thousands and thousands of Afghans youth. They are waiting in neighboring countries to just get out of the region. Those who are inside the country, they cannot get passports to go out, and that can be manipulated, I think. They can be further amplified by what's going on. Then dependency on the humanitarian will increase certainly, but how long the international community can do this, that's another question. And among the youth, already there are criminal tendencies and severe issues of mental health that has been increasing because of the food security and poverty in the country. According to the WFP estimates, there are 3.5 million people that will be covered by end of October, and again having 28.3 million in need, and then hardly covering 3.5, such a big gap would be a disaster for the country and for the population. What are the key challenges in the effectiveness of the humanitarian assistance? We know that this is temporary, and certainly it doesn't solve the actual problem. Doesn't meet the household requirements, which are not only food but other things also. Nepotism and uncooperative behavior of the de facto authorities, they have been intervening in all the humanitarian assistance in this distribution. And lots of time it says that it doesn't reach the deserving beneficiaries, or they have been replacing their own fighters instead of the deserving people. And again, reporting is an issue, because actual access to actual information is another dilemma that's being censored by the de facto authorities. There's no coordination between the authorities there, and there's certainly something to be concerned about. Lots of journalists have been knocked out of the country because of trying to publish stuffs which they shouldn't have been doing it. As I said, and sometimes there have been fees taken from the recipients of these aid packages. And there are concerns. You cannot get it on the public forums because certainly it could be dangerous for those people. And that's one of the challenge for the effectiveness of the aid delivery. What could be done, as suggested from talking to the people on the field, on the ground, basic needs could be prioritized, which is food, not only food, but healthcare, also education and clean water. Implementation of the long-term livelihood projects that could be yield sustainable solutions for poverty and food insecurity. Investment in infrastructure might be one of the solutions because it could create jobs and don't let people to be dependent entirely till I don't know how many years. And then encourage the growth of private sector. And this is a challenge, as I said, there has been a limit on the credit you can access, you can withdraw from your cash. So even the local businessmen, they cannot invest in many initiatives. And this has largely been not highlighted by the media. I mean, I've been witnessing sending sometime assistance to my own family and they cannot access. For weeks in weeks, they cannot access hardly $200 to withdraw from the bank. There's another issue, and there cannot be investments which could, support people, support the local business and generate jobs. Also, one of the initiative which was successful in the previous 20 years by the international community was the cash for work. So people had to work for establishing a local factory, for establishing or construction of a road or any other rural initiative or urban initiative. So this could certainly be producing some positive results. Involvement of women, this has certainly to be the concern of the international community also. You cannot deprive the half of the population from jobs and from life and their right to live and their right to feed their children. Free media coverage might ensure also the transparency and accountability. International observers installation could also be helpful and might yield some transparency in the distribution system of the humanitarian aid. And community-driven social audits might be important. We have Community Development Council formally established in Afghanistan. It could be one of the platform to be utilized. And it's important again to say that influence the de facto authorities not to intervene and to distribute the aid fairly and equitably. Supporting initiatives are needed in order to access actual ground data. This could contribute to informed decision making and better outcomes for those affected by the crisis. This is one of the concerns which can highlight the actual level of the disaster in Afghanistan, and maybe the current digits they might increase if the situation goes on like this. Thank you very much.